Yeah. And speaking of that, Roy Jones Jr. and Joe Calzaghe, you and I talked about how disappointed we were. Basically, I was mentioning. I know it wasn't surprising for you, but it was a little surprising for me that Roy kind of went out like that.
I mean, look, I thought Roy had a chance going in because I thought he could match Calzaghe's greatest physical asset, which is his hand speed. And I thought he could match him if his aptitude and ambition to fight was there. Desire to fight, I guess, is the easiest way to say it, was there. I thought he could match him with pure physical speed, and I still think that it's obvious Roy could. But where obviously he wasn't going to match him was with punch numbers, with the amount of punches. But I thought by keeping it on the outside, he could keep Calzaghe from the dimension he needed to be in, which was in close, where he could keep those punch numbers up. So if Roy could keep him on the outside, he could keep Calzaghe from going into the territory where those punch numbers would, mean something, and where he could bolster those punch numbers. He wasn't going to build those punch numbers on the outside. He was going to build them in close quarters. And I thought, and for Roy to do that, I know this is going to sound so simplistic, but forget about his age, forget about all those things. He had to have the determination, the desire, the discipline to want to fight that kind of fight, which was to keep the guy on the outside. And some of the old timers might have caught after the second round, which was the last round I thought that Roy won. They might have caught that effort being a game quitter. There were old timers. You don't have guys that know boxing so well as much as they used to in the old days when there was so much action and where there was an urgency for those guys to learn the business, and there was an apprenticeship that they could pay to learn the business. But a lot of the old timers would have said that he was a game quitter because he took punches, but he stopped trying to win. And the funny thing is, a lot of people would say, well, but he was game, he took. Isn't that harder to do than if he fought the way, Teddy, you're suggesting? Well, to fight the way I'm suggesting, he would have had to keep the guy on the outside. I'm being a southpaw for a minute, but he would have had to throw his punches and keep him on the outside and bang, throw punches and establish a certain distance that Calzaghe would pay a price before he closed that gap. And if he did that, it would have been an easier fight. He would have taken less punches. So a lot of people would say, well, why wouldn't he do it? It's easier. What's harder is it takes a commitment. It takes a discipline. It takes a certain desire to put yourself in that position and commit to that, to do that. Now, if you just do this, which I think he did all night, you just do that, that's drifting. You just drift, but you're taking punches. So on and say, but he's taking more punches, Ted, so isn't that harder? Well, you know what I equate it to? It's like being in a river, and a guy comes down and gets to two choices. There's a little current. Calzaghe represented the current, right? Okay, there's a little current going on. And he's got a choice, swim against the current, which means he doesn't drown, so that's good. Or let the current take you and just drift, which is easier, but you're going to drown.
Eventually,
It's easier, because you're drifting for a moment, but you are going to drown. The other way, is harder, but it's better because you're going to live. And I think that's kind of what happens in those cases when your mind is boggled. As a person watching it, it's hard to comprehend why he's allowing this to happen. And the easiest thing is to say, well, his reflexes aren't there and all that. I'm not so sure that's really the case. It's just that it becomes easier at that point in his life for whatever reasons, because he's made money, because there's no urgency, whatever it is, to drift and eventually drown than it is to move his hands and swim and not drown.